And a pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome to the Brevard Sports Network and the Natwick Insurance post-game show here on Brevard Sports Network. Back with you after, I think, 2 weeks off we took from the post-game show. Not a lot last week. I mean, there was some football action going on last week, but with buys, I think there were 7 teams that were either weathered out and had buys. But this week, just 2 buys in Brevard County as 16 of the 18 teams got underway or played tonight. The only 2 buys in the area tonight, the Melbourne Bulldogs and the Astronaut War Eagles. And usually we starting this thing off tonight. Let's just jump right into it. And so there is your Week 9-10 scoreboard, if you will. Satellite played last night and bounced back quite nicely from their lone setback of the season to West Nassau last week as they took care of Tradition Prep 41-6. The dark side defense tonight showed up in force, and it was a heck of a football game tonight defensively for the Cocoa Tigers. And how about having a healthy Javion Scott in the backfield for the Tigers as they just dominated the Villages tonight with a 27-6 victory in that one. MCC wins, I believe, and we'll double check this before we put it in any type of type print, so to speak, wins their 3rd straight district championship as they defeat Orlando Christian Prep 37-14 tonight. O'Galley doing O'Galley things. Palm Bay struck first, but O'Galley would then score the next 56 as the Commodores would go on to win 56-6. Space Coast continues to roll towards another SSAA crown as they defeat Masters Academy 47-14 tonight. Vieira, in a game that I was a little nervous about for the Hawks. I thought potentially this could be a trap game. Vieira too good, though. Next week, a big showdown, district showdown with Melbourne. 2nd place in the district on the line next week, and a possibility of hosting a first-round playoff game as well, as Vieira will host Melbourne next week. But they beat Seabreeze tonight, 41-14. Okeechobee, 22-0 over Bayside. Foundation Academy, 3-point victory in a thrilling game over Cocoa Beach, 37-34. In the game of the night, Merritt Island, we're going to talk about this game first tonight because we're going to take this from a different standpoint tonight in that we're going to talk about these games as they pertain to the FHSAA playoff rankings, because that's really all that matters right now at this particular point in time of the season. But the Mustangs tonight get a 3-point victory over Titusville tonight at Al Wernicke Field, 31-28. Mainland all over Heritage. And for the Panthers, it just simply comes down to beating Martin County next week at home for the district championship as to whether or not the Panthers will be playing November football. They fall to Mainland 33-6. Rockledge 3-0 in district play as they get a 34-24 win over Pine Ridge. And an 8-man action, Merritt Island Christian all over Eastland Christian in a game you saw right here on Brevard Sports Network, 54-0. And Lake Mary defeats Calvary Chapel 51-28. So let's talk about that Titusville Merritt Island game tonight, because that is the crazy district that, quite honestly, is the chaos in terms, you had the weather out last week between O'Galley and Merritt Island, which really kind of spun this thing around a little bit. But there on your screen are the most recent FHSAA playoff rankings in 3A Region 2. And you got Bishop Moore, number 1. And I believe any one of Brevard County's 3 teams that are currently ranked in the playoff rankings, whether it be O'Galley, Merritt Island, or Titusville, can beat Bishop Moore. Sorry, Hornets. I just have faith in the guys here in the 3-2-1, and I believe any one of these 3 teams can beat Bishop Moore. Excuse me. You got O'Galley 2nd, Eastside 3rd, Merritt Island's 4th, South Sumter 5th, Tavares 6th. There's Titusville sitting down here at number 7. Now, that's the cutoff spot. It's not 8 a lot of people might say, well, Alan, it's got to be 8, right? Because the top, 8 teams in each region go. Yes, that's true. But if you look over here to the right, where it says D6, D8, D5, D8, D5, D6, D8, and D5, what you don't see in the top 8 is a D7. And so here's the good news, that a district champ from District 7, if the season were to end today, again, which is the stupidest expression in sports because it's not going to, but if it were, right now, Titusville would make the playoffs. Denellen would be out. Wekiwachi, or what Harry pronounced it, Wekiwaki, would move into the A spot because Denellen loses tonight to Hawthorne. So Titusville will stay at 7 regardless of their loss. Wekiwaki gets the win tonight. They win. They'll likely slide into that 7th spot, which will give District 7 a team in the top 8, meaning the cutoff point no longer becomes number 7, because if we get to the end of the season and there's no representative from a particular district in the top 8, and I hope I'm explaining this correctly, then what happens is the district champ automatically slides in at the number 8 seed, making the 7th seed the cutoff spot. So for Titusville, everything is magnified. And, I think if you're going to go back and look at this season for the Titusville Terriers, they got to be one of the best 3 and 5 football teams in the state of Florida, first of all. Second of all, I don't know if they led at any point in the fourth quarter tonight. I haven't actually gone back and watched the football game, but I will. But I do know in 3 of their 5 losses this season, they led in the fourth quarter. This is going to be a season of just near misses for the Titusville Terriers. The good news is that if Titusville can get into the playoffs, and they can't lose again. I know they play Astronaut coming up. Let's take a look at Titusville's schedule the rest of the way here. I believe, see here. This was probably the last game that Titusville could lose and be a playoff team. Because if you remember last year, Merritt Island lost both to Titusville and O'Galley and still made the playoffs. So they're going to play Palm Bay next week, and then they're going to close it out versus Astronaut. On the surface, they should be favored in both of those football games. They're going to host Astronaut and travel to Palm Bay. So they're going to pick, likely, should, right now, Palm Bay's, rebuilding. So they should go down to Palm Bay and probably come home with a win. And against Astronaut at home in the battle for the Hudson, they'll be favored in that one too. So let's say theoretically that Titusville wins their final 2 games of the year. Well, that's going to put them at what's that? That's going to put them at 5-5, and they're going to be a 7 seed, and they're going to get in the playoffs. They're likely going to get the crack in round 1 again against the O'Galley Commodores. Last year, it was Merritt Island in round 1 in that great football game, playoff football game. So right now, I think you're looking at a potential first-round matchup because O'Galley sits 3 points behind Bishop Moore. That's probably going to stay the same. 1, 2, 3, 4 probably stay the same the rest of the way. I could see Merritt Island slipping into the 3 spot past Eastside. But Titusville's probably going to stay a 7. They could move up to a 6, and if that's the case, would play an Eastside or could play Merritt Island if Merritt Island slides up. But the bottom line is this was probably the last football game that Titusville could afford to lose this season. And again, with Palm Bay and Astronaut on their schedule the rest of the way, I think Terrier fans are planning on a 5-5 season. And if that's the case, you're fine. But a slip up in any one of those games, and you could be in trouble. And again, good news tonight that Wekiwaki wins tonight because they will likely slide ahead of Denellen in that 8 spot, which puts a District 7 team in the top 8, which is what you want because you don't want that 8 spot to be the cutoff. You want that, you don't want that 7th spot to be the cutoff. So I think the Terriers are fine. Whatever haunts this football team late in games, obviously they're going to want to get fixed moving down the stretch because you can't, in the playoffs, you lead in the fourth quarter, you got to win the football game. And I think Coach Diesel and company are are obviously working on that. They don't want to lose football games they lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's the obvious statement, right? But a season of just near misses, this could easily be a 6-2 team. I think a lot of people felt like they should have beat O'Galley. I think there'll probably be a few people that walk out of tonight saying they probably could have beat Merritt Island. Should have beat Heritage, right? I mean, so there's 3 wins right there on the cusp for Titusville. But you know the expression, right, about ifs, and I ain't going to get into that. But Titusville still with an opportunity here to go 5-5, and should they do that, they'll be just fine. Let's pull the scoreboard back up again here, and let's talk about the Cocoa Tigers tonight and what I was able to witness at Richard Dick Blake Stadium, because I saw a Cocoa Tiger football team tonight that I think we saw an identity. We often talk about with Cocoa the John Wilkinson era and now the Ryan Schneider era, both equally as successive as each, right? I mean, you got 4 state championship appearances for Schneider, 3 state championship wins, 5 state championship appearances for Wilkinson, 4 state championship wins. So I think, it's fair to say that both of these eras are successful, right? Wilkinson obviously did it with the rushing attack and the dark side defense, and Schneider has done it through the air, 260 yards a game and 2 touchdowns, and the dark side defense. The dark side defense being the one constant for the Cocoa Tigers. Well, that constant was there tonight for Cocoa. That dark side defense was as phenomenal. It was the best I've seen it play all year. Coach DeMarcus Manyfield, the defensive coordinator for that football team tonight, their front 7 was absolutely amazing tonight. Strip sack fumble or strip sack interception. We saw that tonight. 3 sacks tonight for, I'm looking at the roster. Please message in because what a great night for this defense. The secondary tonight, C.J. Hester and Duran Guilford and O'Keefe's battle, and just a great night overall for this Cocoa Tiger defense tonight. They came to play, and I'll be honest with you, the offense, they put points on they put 6. And listen, Keelan Gonzalez, the junior kicker, what a foot and an asset this kid is tonight. Because the offense, as it has this year, gets inside the red zone, and they struggled to start the football game. And Keelan Gonzalez bails them out with, 2 field goals. And so, they put points on the board. They had a lead. They let Waters. Waters, with 3 sacks, 3.5 sacks tonight. And what a night for him. He came in with 4. Jermaine Waters came in with 4. I think he's got 7.5 now. And he was ferocious tonight getting to the quarterback. You couldn't stop him. And the Cocoa Tiger front 7 just owned a very big offensive line for the Village. They pushed them around all night long. And so did the Cocoa Tigers offensive line to the Village's front 7. We'll get to that in a minute because that's the identity the Cocoa Tigers found tonight, was running the football. And what an amazing difference it is. And Zay Chappell is a terrific back, and he's done a terrific job when called upon. But Javion Scott tonight, literally on drives for that Tigers offense, put that team on his back, put that offense on his back. And I don't know how many tackles the kid broke tonight, but it was a lot. And he did a terrific job of running. I know he had to have at least 150 plus tonight and 2 touchdowns. What a great job he did. And that offensive line getting that first push off the ball. Great job by those guys tonight. And Champ Smith. Champ tonight starting at quarterback. Listen, Champ throws the short to intermediate pass as good as anybody in the county. He struggles with the long ball. He's just throwing that ball up down there. And I would rather see the Tigers go with the hitch, go with the little outs, go with he hit Tank White with a big night tonight. Tank has struggled a little bit this year, as has the Tigers' passing attack. Tank caught everything thrown his way tonight. and he was tiptoeing and tapping toes and just a great job by Tank tonight, catching the football across the middle of the field, taking big hits after he did it. But I think it was interesting because I think what you saw was an identity change for the 2025 Cocoa Tigers tonight, because there was a point in the third quarter as we were getting down late and the Tigers were backed up late, backed up deep in their own end, and they handed the ball off to Javian Scott, and he took off on about a 35-yard run that got him out to midfield. And the Tigers would eventually score on this drive to make it 20-0. Well, the Tigers would get the football back, and on the first 3 plays of this drive, instead of going back to the run, they threw the football, and it was 3 straight incomplete passes. And we even said on the broadcast, obviously Ryan Schneider and Adam Franco, there's a reason they're on the sidelines, and me and Knockrider are in the booth. But it's our job to ask, why are you throwing the football? But the interesting thing that we found was that it's almost as if they said to themselves, you know what? Here's our identity with Javion Scott and that offensive line. This is what we're going to do. And they went back to the run, and Scott did the same thing again, and it was successful, and the Tigers, would go back down and score a touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Although I wish they would have taken a knee because they had to kick off, and then they ran it, and then the Villages ran it back, taking that 0 off the board. But that's okay. Listen, you got to continue to build confidence in that offense. But I think the Tigers, maybe internally tonight, were like, okay, yes, we have this great running back and rushing attack and offensive line, but our identity is throwing the football. And when it didn't work out on the next drive, 3 straight plays, which actually stopped the clock 3 straight times and gave the Villages the football back, it was almost as if a light switch went off, and they said, you know what, that's not who we are this year, and it's not. They have a formula. Cocoa has a formula that can be very successful. Listen, for those of you out there, if you look at this region, the region the Tigers are in right now, okay? And here it is on your screen. Let's take a look at 2A Region 2. The Cocoa Tigers can make it 19 straight years of going back to the Final Four. The Villages were the number 1 seed in this region tonight coming into this football game. And the Cocoa Tigers chucked them out of Richard Dick Blake Stadium and sent them back to Orlando, or the Villages actually, with their tail between their legs. And Cocoa beat Bradford in the kickoff classic. Calvary Christian, I don't know much about them, but Astronaut, we'll find out about Astronaut and Cocoa next week. Berkeley Prep, Cocoa right now to me is the best team in this district or in this region. So they have a formula with running the football with Scott, Champ Smith with the mid to intermediate pass. Throw the hitch, baby. Throw the hitch. We saw it tonight with Cameron Varys on a couple of plays. Varys is ideal for that hitch. Kid is tough. He's got speed. Love seeing him throw the hitch to Cameron Varys. Folks, I'm telling you right now, you look at 2A Region 2, and the Cocoa Tigers can win this district, can win this region and go back to the Final Four. What happens from the Final Four, I don't know, okay? Because when you look at, you got Bowles in there, right? You got Cardinal Mooney in there. I mean, this is not an easy classification. But this region, the Cocoa Tigers can win this region and get back to the Final Four. And tonight, I believe they have found that formula to do that. With that mid to intermediate pass, they don't need to go deep down the field. Javian Scott and company can open up enough underneath to move the sticks, burn time off that clock, and put points on the scoreboard. We saw it tonight against the Villages team that's a pretty good football team. A pretty good football team. But you look at this region, and the Tigers, to me, the Villages, Bradford, Calvary, Cocoa, Astronaut, Berkeley, Prep, Santa Fe, Newberry. The Tigers, to me, stand out as the best in this region right now, heading into next week against Astronaut, and then, of course, they've got Rockledge for the Barbecue Bowl. So, and the Tigers can easily, this should drop the Villages from 1. Cocoa should move up to 3. Calvary Christian should slip back here, maybe to 4. Bradford will move up to 1. The Villages, 16 points. So that's 12 points, a lot of points to overcome. Cocoa may move up to 3. The Villages 2. Bradford 1. Cocoa will see the Villages again. They'll either see the Villages or Astronaut at some point in time. But right now, the Tigers in a position to at least host a first-round playoff game. They beat Astronaut next week. They're district champs. Astronaut beats Cocoa, and Astronaut and Cocoa will share the district championship because the Villages beat Astronaut last week 35-0. So be interesting from here on out. But I think we saw something tonight that the Cocoa Tigers found, and it worked wonderfully. The mid to intermediate passing game, Javion Scott and that dark side defense playing lights out. And there you have it. There's the formula for success. And you know what? Running the ball, protecting the football, and playing great defense is a formula that's worked in football playoffs since our good Lord was a baby. So it's the forever formula of successful playoff football. If you can run the ball like the Tigers did tonight, you can win a lot of playoff games. So there you have it. Impressive win by Cocoa tonight. There are obviously some things to clean up. They hurt themselves early with some holding penalties or blocking in the back penalties in a red zone. I'd like to see them more consistent in the red zone, cashing in. But you know what? They put up 27 points tonight, and that is a step in the right direction for a Cocoa Tiger offense that has struggled mightily this season. It was good to see them have the success that they had tonight. Other games in terms of what impacts and again, with a lot of teams in SSAA action, it's weird because we don't have as many Brevard County teams. But I would love to say congratulations to the Melbourne Central Catholic Hustlers. How about the Hustlers winning a 3rd straight district championship tonight? Let's take a look at their classification and region. As a lot of you might be saying, well, how does that happen with a 2-win football team? Well, let's show you how it happens. So we go here to Region 2. And there you see, let me get the thing off the screen there. So we go to Region 2. And here's Region 2. So Carrollwood Day, Clearwater Central, the First Academy. So there's First Academy. They are in the same district as MCC is, District 6. You have 3 teams in District 6. The First Academy, Melbourne Central Catholic, and Orlando Christian Prep, who MCC played and beat pretty good tonight. So the First Academy were given sanctions last year, a 2-year playoff ban, so they can't win the district championship. So with just 3 teams in the district, that meant that the game tonight between Orlando Christian Prep and MCC was for the district championship. And boy, did Melbourne Central Catholic come out and play well tonight. That was a game you saw right here on Brevard Sports Network. Great defense, great offense, special teams, all of it clicked tonight for MCC. The game stopped about a minute and a half early. I do not have an update on the injured young man at the end of the football game, but the Hustlers do win their 3rd straight district championship. They lock up a playoff berth. No, it does not guarantee a home playoff game for MCC. Unless they are paired with a non-district winner. Because at 2-5, if you look here, the Hustlers coming in were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They were 7th in the region. So right now, if the season were to end today, and again, there's the stupidest expression in sports, they would have to travel. Clearwater Central Catholic is the district champ, so they would have to travel to play Clearwater Central Catholic. Now, obviously, they would be 6 because the First Academy would move out. So whoever number 3 would be. Again, if they're paired with a non-district champ, they would host. If they're paired with a higher-seeded district champ, they would travel in round 1. But congratulations to MCC. 37 points tonight. I know that's got to feel good for an offense that has also struggled this year, and good for their defense. This was a game Melbourne Central Catholic won last year and then turned around and lost to OCP in the first round of the playoffs. So they got to feel really good about this win tonight and about capturing their third straight district championship and locking in their ticket to a postseason berth. So congratulations to Willie Tillman and company for doing that tonight. Take a look at the scoreboard again here. Rockledge, how about the Raiders tonight? The Raiders. Let's take a look at the Rockledge Raiders in 4A because they are Brevard's only representative in 4A. And, no, we don't want that. They are the only representative from, all right, here we go. So the Raiders are now 3-0 in district play. And they've put it on their district opponents pretty good this season. Let me get this pulled up. Here we go. Okay, so let's take a look at where the Raiders are. So the Raiders came into this game tonight. Jones, number 1, Vanguard 2, Zephyr Hills 3, Lake Wales 4, Auburndale 5, New Smyrna Beach 6, Rockledge 7. Well, you know what? Next week, the Raiders are going to play New Smyrna Beach. They're going to host them. And the winner of that game is your district champ. Whether if it's John Wilkinson in New Smyrna Beach, they win the district championship. If it's John Holmes in Rockledge, they win the district championship. And this is really the same path the Raiders took last year. The Raiders are now 3-5. All 3 of their wins have come in district play. And that's what it boils down to next week for Rockledge. They got to beat New Smyrna Beach, and they win the district and guarantee a playoff spot. There's nothing guaranteed here. Here's 7. Lecanto is 8. Seabreeze, who Vieira handled comfortably tonight, is 9th. Rockledge has a win over them. Lecanto is in another district. I think I just can't see the Raiders, regardless. Now, if they lose to New Smyrna Beach next week, they're in dangerous territory here. So they got to be careful. But if the Raiders go 0-2 the rest of the season, then they're going to have to watch intently on Selection Sunday to see if they make the postseason. But I think that if they go 3 or 2-1 in district play or 3-1 in district play, I think the Raiders will have done enough to at least locked up an 8 seed. Obviously, you want to see them win the district. If they can do that, then they guarantee a spot. And like MCC, it only guarantees the Raiders a spot in the playoffs. It does not guarantee a home game, and chances are they're going to want to stay 7. They're going to want to play Vanguard. They're not going to want to travel to Jones in round 1 if they are an 8 seed. You don't want to do that. You just don't want to go play Jones in round 1. Not that the Raiders would be afraid of them, but Jones is a great football team, and their strength of schedule is pretty good. But the 2 toughest strengths of schedule in Brevard County this year is MCC and Rockledge. Those 2 teams have played the toughest strengths of schedule in Brevard County this season, according to the FHSAA's strength of schedule metrics. And really, MCC has played the second toughest schedule in all of 1A. And you look here at Rockledge, right? Come down here. Here's your strength of schedule. See the arrow coming down here. The Raiders at 11-7-2. The toughest strength of schedule in all of Region 2. And the only other team that's really even close to that is Jones, who's at a 10-53. So that's why the Raiders are blowing out their district opponents, is because they're playing these top 25 ranked teams when they're not playing district opponents. I mean, going into tonight's game, they were 2-0 and had outscored their two district opponents 89-7. And then tonight, hang another 34 points up on the scoreboard tonight. So good for Rockledge. Now Heritage is our 5A team. So let's go to 5A. They are in 5A Region 4, so they are all the way down here at the bottom. So in 5A Region 4, you have Atlantic, Mater Academy, St. Thomas, Coconut Creek, Martin County, MacArthur, Miramar, North Miami, Heritage. Heritage currently out of a playoff spot in terms of an automatic berth. It just comes down to this next week for Heritage. They got to beat Martin County. They beat Martin County, their district champs. It's the same thing they did last year. Tonight Mainland took them to the woodshed tonight, but they beat Martin County at home next week, and Heritage is district champs, and they too are in the playoffs. But they too are likely traveling as well, either to Atlantic, who's undefeated, or Mater Academy, who's undefeated, or St. Thomas Aquinas. And that's 3 potential first-round matchups no team would want. But listen, Heritage, there's their strength of schedule, 538. That is also the toughest strength of schedule in Region 4. We said at the beginning of the year, the toughest strengths of schedule was Cocoa, O'Galley, Rockledge, Heritage, and then MCC turned out to have the toughest. So there you go. It stands to be true as Heritage has the toughest strength of schedule in Region 4. And they dropped to 3 and 5. They'll likely stay a 9 or 10 seed in the region. But again, that doesn't matter. They beat Martin County next week. They're in the playoffs. They don't beat Martin County next week, they're not going to make it. And it just simply comes down to that. And then in 6A next week, this is an interesting scenario because Melbourne's on a bye this week. Why does it keep doing that? Melbourne is on a bye this week. Vieira took care of business as they were supposed to. Hold on, we'll get back there in a second. My apologies. As they were supposed to against Seabreeze. So here we go, 6A. And when we look at Region 2 in 6A, you got Armwood, Southlake, Osceola, Melbourne, leapfrog Vieira this week, 4 or 5. But that 4 or 5 spot's going to come down to next week. And if Vieira wins, they become the 4. Melbourne becomes the 5. And the interesting part about that is 4 hosts. So there's, Osceola Kissimmee has already won the district with wins over both Melbourne and Vieira. So next week, whoever wins that Melbourne-Vieira game will likely host the first-round playoff game against the other. Either Vieira's going to travel to Melbourne, right, or Melbourne's going to travel to Vieira. And whoever wins that game next week is likely what you're going to see there. Now, the only thing that scares me here is Durant out of Plant City Plant has an opportunity to leapfrog Vieira or Melbourne should they win next week. And obviously one of those 2 teams are going to lose because they face each other. But a big, big game next week in 6A that is likely going to mean who hosts a first-round playoff game between those 2 teams. So that is recapping all of it from 1A to 6A. And I don't know where to find if the SSAA, I don't know anything about whether the SSAA has playoff rankings or they put them out. They don't send them to me. I don't know anything. So if anybody has any idea where I can find them, I'd be happy to go over the SSAA playoff rankings and how they work. But I don't know anything about it. I don't get anything from the SSAA in terms of that. But here is the Week 10 scoreboard. One more time, Satellite over Tradition Prep last night, 41-6. And the Scorps are now 8-1. Cocoa moves to 3-4 and a chance to win a district championship next week against the Astronaut War Eagles as they defeat the Villages Charter 27-6. MCC wins their 3rd straight district championship with a 37-14 win over OCP. O'Galley, the Corbin and Larice show, along with that defense tonight. Xavier Larice and Xavier Corbin doing X-Factor things again. 56-6, TJ Monroe with a good night as well. Vieira all over Seabreeze, 41-14. Space Coast over Masters Academy, 47-14. Okeechobee over Bayside, 22-0. Foundation Academy defeats Cocoa Beach, 37-34. Merritt Island, 31. Titusville, 28. Titusville still good. should still be sitting there at number 7 when the rankings are released this week. Holy Trinity 49, Oxbridge Academy nothing. And the Tigers continue to roll, especially on the offensive side of the football. Mainland 33, Heritage 6, Rockledge 34, Pine Ridge 24, Merritt Island Christian 54, Eastland Christian nothing, Lake Mary Prep 51, Calvary Chapel 28. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Another late night here on the network. No youth football tomorrow. Stay tuned. Coming up a little bit later on, we'll have our recaps posted on Brevard Sports Network. 7 minutes left, and I just want to say happy birthday to Caleb. 7 minutes left in the young man's 29th birthday. It was a great night. Hope you enjoyed it here as we had 4 games on the network. We had, of course, Coco and the Villages, myself and Anthony Knockreiner. We had MCC's big district clinching win with Chase Alexander, who always does a terrific job. We had Ontavius McCullough and my man Jared Oliver on the Vieira game. And, of course, Ron Lighthall and Brian Kelly on Merritt Island Christian and Eastland Christian. 3 more big ones next week here on the network. Stay tuned to find out which ones they are. And, again, to you and to yours, have a great night. Enjoy the weekend. And we'll see you again next week